And baby, I'm TFC till I die.
Hello and welcome back to Toronto Till I Die, the Toronto FC fan show. And my name is Mike Newell, and was I the only one who went into the backyard yesterday and tried a backheel flick like Prince Owosu did on the weekend and then fell on his ass and had the neighbors wonder, who is this man-child and how is he able to buy this house beside us? No, you're probably a regular person who didn't try to do that. Okay, sweet. We're back to that winning feeling. Everybody's feeling good after a cold one on the Lake Shore. We will talk about TFC's 1-0 win over the New England Revolution. It's transfer deadline days tomorrow, at least the first one for the season. So we'll talk a little bit about that, a little bit about Jason Hernandez's comments this afternoon. Heard's the word returns. So I think, Jeff, you got a good one lined up, and we will get into a few big questions heading into a double match week for Toronto FC. But before we get into all of that, with my co-host Jeffrey P. Nesker. Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
I'm not as I don't need to thaw out because I managed to avoid the Lakeshore this weekend. I was previously indisposed, but you were all over Reddit, my friend. There's like a post on TFC Reddit, somebody's first game day experience. They obviously sat in 116, 115, and yeah, you are all over that. You are all over their video, just megaphoning away in row 2. I like this new thing you're doing where you're capoing, but you refuse to go on the capo stand. It's a cool new vibe. I like it.
Just a cameo, not a full-time gig anymore. I'm too old for that. But once in a while, you just get the vibes going, and especially after they're on their way to a victory, right? So it was a good time.
It's Saturday. Like Banksy watching a crappy guy tagging something. He's like, no, hold on a second, you're doing it wrong. Like you can only watch bad art for so long when you're the master of the domain, right?
No.
I feel you.
It was just one of those things where the mood struck right, and we did it, so it was good. The vibes were good too, right? Like everybody was in good spirits, even coming off a couple of losses, which was surprising to me actually. That people were in high spirits, and I think a lot of people kind of had a feeling that this was a winnable game for Toronto FC. I wonder
what gave them that impression.
I think Thomas is watching today, or he might be on. So,
or at the very least, he here. Let me bring it up. Nice one, nice segue. Yeah. Credit to Thomas, our guest on Who Are Ya, was in before we went live tonight. No, Thomas, we want Caleb. I mean, if we're trading for anybody, it's Caleb Porter. I like the cut of his jib. I honestly, I'm gonna try and ship him for the Canadian men's national team job. I think he'd be perfect.
Don't worry, no, that's a whole other podcast, man. That's a whole other
man.
Podcast.
I gotta be honest. I listened back to that what was it, like 15, 20, 30-minute segment with Thomas more times than I'd like to admit, because it was just damn good content. Like it was fun having that sort of banter with someone that was willing to go there after, because I think it was like an exorcism for both of us. It was just fantastic, and I'm already waiting for us to play New England again so we get a chance to talk to Thomas again. I really like doing these Who Are You shows, Mikey. I gotta say,
they are fun. We're trying to get somebody in for Simcoe County Rovers before Wednesday, and we're also lining up somebody to talk about Orlando this coming weekend, because like I said, it is a double match week for your Reds. But let's get into the good vibes first, and then we'll start future forward looking in terms of that. 1-0 win over New England at BMO Field. Fantastic goal from Prince Owosu. People saying he didn't mean it. He meant it. Like
he meant it.
I mean, what a goal. Yeah. And look, I it's funny because up until that point, I think the word in the stands was, I think the team was playing okay. They're holding their own, but they just needed a cutting edge, right? Like there just
Mhm.
wasn't. It didn't feel like a goal was necessarily coming. There were chances, right? Like TFC created chances. There were opportunities, like we've said the last couple of weeks, to put the ball in the net, and they just couldn't find a way in. And it took a sort of moment of magic from. Actually, let me take that back. Let me scale that back a little bit. I'll walk that
Mhm.
back.
Mhm.
Not so much a moment of magic. Yeah, not so much a moment of magic. I actually think it was like, of course you get a little bit fortuitous because the clearance was awful from the New England defender. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. But it goes straight up in
I
the air.
think it
But
was Romney, wasn't it? Wasn't it Romney? Isn't that
no, it wasn't Romney. But
okay?
it was,
Oh,
or it might
oh,
have been
oh,
Romney.
the hair. No,
Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
no. He's
I'm
got an S
forgetting his
name.
name
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now. It's escaping
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the presence of mind for Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy, who coming in as a substitution, what a spark plug that he provided to the attack. A great header across, just a presence of mind to head that across, and then of course Prince, just a little bit of improvisation to get that ball in the back of the net.
My
Fantastic stuff.
goodness,
Jeff, I know you weren't there,
hallelujah.
but you were watching on
Mhm.
TV. How did it look from where you were
Actually,
watching?
no, I mean, if you want the proper rundown, I saw the tweet or the X or whatever, and then I opened
Mm,
up my phone and I almost did like 20 spit takes. I was like, that is ridiculous. An immediate FOMO because, that's gotta I'm so sick of, I don't want to say top five. This team's been around for a long time, but certainly in the pantheon of great TFC goals scored at home facing the South End. That's got to be one. That's got to be up there.
oh, it was great.
So into the pantheon you go, Prince. Uh, it looked amazing. It looked amazing. And then I'm screaming for all of the angles, every last one of them, and I want them all in slow mo, like 60 frames per second. And zoomed in. So it was great. It was unbelievable. What a goal. You don't do that by accident. You just don't. That's not something you do by accident. There's skill there. And just to circle back to your words on the it's all clicking. I'm not like this has kind of stumped me a little bit because it's hindsight is always 2020, and again I don't want to presuppose too much based on small sample size, but you know, I did say a few weeks ago, Prince strikes me as the kind of striker, and I realize there's some alliteration there. Sorry, I didn't plan this one out beforehand. But he strikes me as the number 9. There you go. Avoid the alliteration. That, feasts on chaos. He's not the guy, like you just get it into the mixer, chaos ball, up high, down low, too slow. He's going to get on the end of 50% of those, right? And if he's in form, maybe more. And, I it seems so obvious, and I don't know what the answer is. Is it like it's easy to say trust? It's easy, but to me, it seems like the team was like hanging on for dear life. They wanted to play pretty, and they've got a guy who is the antithesis of that. Like he's the dark side of the moon to pretty, right? As ugly as possible. Just get him in there. He's going to find a way inside that 6-yard box to make magic happen. And so I guess the fates are aligning, like the team has decided that maybe scoring is better than not getting our striker the service that he wants. And our striker is sort of rounding into form and kind of engendering that trust from the rest of the team, because now they have a feeling that maybe he'll finish 50% of those chances. But it's a beautiful thing to see. And I really like that profile of striker. I really, really do. And the guy's a stone cold killer. Like he's so zen in interviews, like he just strikes me as that like, yeah, I know that I'm talking about that presser, and he said it with like zero facial expressions. Like Prince Owosu has one facial expression or half a facial expression, and that's perfect. Like that's perfect. I don't want him to be Mr. Smiley Good Time guy. I want him to look like he's got the bit between his teeth 24/7, and he sort of does. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think, look, I think with the way that the team is now, look, the way the team has to play with no Lorenzo Insigne at the moment has to be a little bit more direct, right? They have to be a little bit more straightforward in the way that they play, which actually I think actually suits this team a lot better than it may even think, right? I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the times we look at having those two DPs and having a Jonathan Osorio, you think you can, and even like when Alonso Cuejo's in the lineup, being able to spray balls and play possession and play through lines and things like that. I think sometimes this team is much better and much more dangerous when it decides to be direct, when it decides to go down the flanks and get to the byline and put a cross in and let things happen that way. And in a lot of ways, that's how the chance came about, right? Like it comes about from a bit of press, a bit of turnover. You get the ball or trying to get the ball into the box. Okay, it doesn't work the first time around. You get a little bit fortuitous with a bad clearance, and then you're able to make things happen within the box, right? So, is it a way forward? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to continue to play this. Like when Lorenzo Insigne gets back, does this all change? It's quite possible, but if you can get Prince Owosu going, and look, and I'll be honest, I was one of the people who didn't necessarily buy the Prince Owosu hype train. Mike Singh was all over that, but
I know where is he? Where is he? Like to gloat over us, just like spread a blanket of gloat
somewhere
over
on
us.
a beach in like Miami.
Yeah. So but when he comes back, man, he is going. Like we need at least 5 minutes of just Singh gloating all over us.
Yeah, but I mean, look, he was right, and I think we both agreed on this that Prince Owosu has a lot of good starting points, right? Like we said, he's super quick. He's big and he's physical, and he can play in the middle and jostle with center backs and can be a bit of a physical presence. And then now we're seeing a bit of that touch with inside the box, that little bit of class that you can have. And look, he missed some gilt-edged chances earlier in the season. And clearly the way that we feel about our number 9s right now, anybody who misses at the moment is just going to get it, right, from fans because we just have this sort of thing where we just need a number 9 who can go in every week and just score on a regular, and we haven't had that since Josie. Realistically, maybe his is Jimenez in the first half of 2022,
and even with Josie, it's rose-colored glasses. Like people remember him as a week in, week out performer, and there's a lot of that didn't happen, right? Like he scored
He's injured a lot,
ferocious gloves for our club, but he was injured well before the 2019 re-up. There was frustrations there. I mean, it was a shit show after 2019, but history does wonderful things to a fan base, and now we only remember the good times but potentially not the bad times. A striker that scores week in, week out is a rarity in the Premier League, so forget about MLS, right? Like we really need to lower our expectations here. And at the end of the day, isn't it funny that like Prince, and I really don't want to say this, but isn't it funny that Prince is starting to produce at the time that like we've almost all unilaterally given up on him and we're looking elsewhere? Like I think it's going to be such a fun little present that we potentially had what we were looking for in many cases right under our noses, and we just had to be more patient and give the team the opportunity.
Well, I mean, it's hard to be patient, right? When this team has been so bad for so long, right? It's
right.
It's hard to give that patience that benefit of the doubt. But I mean, look, Jason Hernandez has talked about this in the past. Coaches have talked about this in the past with Prince Owosu. Like the quality's there. Like in his press conference, he said he scores bangers in training. This is a guy who needed some time to get his feet wet here in North America. And now we're starting to see a little bit of that pedigree and that class that we were told about. And we saw in highlight reels and all that kind of stuff. Like I was saying this to somebody on the weekend, right? Like he does have good pedigree. Like he came up to a Bundesliga academy. He played a lot in 2 Bundesliga. Like that's not a slouch league, right? Like that's a
no, it isn't.
It's a good league, especially if you're transitioning over to MLS. And this is a guy who can score goals, right? When given a runway, given consistent games to be in the lineup, get to know his teammates, and they can understand how he makes runs and how he sort of plays in the box. And you're seeing a little bit more of that connectivity on the game.
I'll take it even further. I'm sure we've all watched the Man City documentary that's going around. The self-congratulatory, we won the treble, Jack Grealish drunk parade show. But that team was so willing. Like Erling Haaland is not a multifaceted striker. He's a very one-dimensional finisher, right? The team changed to accommodate him. That's the difference, right? Owusu is not a multifaceted striker. He's incredibly one-dimensional. We wanted him to change for us. I know I'm simplifying, but now we're at least giving halfway. We're at least meeting him halfway, right? Like and I don't want to say that he's been perfect and it was just the rest of the team that needed to catch up to him, because that's not true either. He was out of position at the same time. It's starting to gel now. Like you said, repeated reps are paying off, and that's great. And before I forget, I know you've got a question here, and I know I've clipped it, but actually I'll wait because it will come up later. So
Okay,
keep going.
fair enough. Yeah, a couple of other things. I mean, we're gushing about principles too, but there were a lot of positives out of this game. We will get to some of the parts of the game, but I thought again, Tyrese Spicer for a start, again, lively, direct. Again, you can still see he's still a rookie, but even at this level, he is as sort of said again by Michael Singh when he reported on the draft pick at the time, a ready-made MLS player, right? A player
What was
that can
it,
come
4 or
on
5 devastating runs down the flank? Like, that's worth the price of admission. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see he's got a shot on him. He's going to score goals from either a wing back position or if they play him on the wing. There are going to be opportunities for him. I think defensively he's got work to do, but of course he's a rookie again. We know he's got work to do from that perspective, but I think
100.
there's enough points there where you're confident in putting him in the lineup and he can make a difference going forward, especially because he's willing to take guys on. He's willing to do that pressing work. He can win the ball up the pitch. He did that a couple of times on Saturday and was sort of becoming more dangerous down the flank in terms of getting to the line and either crossing or being able to play back into a dangerous or cut back to a dangerous position. So that was really positive as well. I thought Jonathan Osorio played well. I mean, Jonathan was steady, right? Like that's kind of the what you need from him in terms
his
of
shooting boots are off. His targeting sensors are terrible right now. That's my one complaint with Oso. He used to bury those opportunities where he was like the last man, the Paul Scholes, the Paul Scholes.
Yeah, he took a
right?
little extra touch.
Just coming in late.
Half.
Yeah. And it's an easy narrative to say it's because he's overthinking things because he's wearing the armband now, but I'm going to say it. I do see him overthinking things, and I don't think it's just because he's wearing the armband. I think it's because we're asking too much out of Oso, and I say that with peace and love. When you simplify his game, that's when he expresses himself. When you give him too many responsibilities, that's when he feels overburdened and you get mediocrity out of him. I do think that was a really good game from Oso, but I will die on the hill that we're asking him to do too much. And I don't think that is a negative thing. I think his role is not being saddled with all of that responsibility. And we've got to find a way to make it easier for him. So that's my thought on Oso.
Fair. I mean, I think like the chance in the first half, he just gets stuck under his feet a little bit, and he just has to take an extra touch. I think, look, if doesn't get stuck under his feet, I think he hits that first time. It's probably in the back of the net. It's 1-0, right? So there's that, and then I think he connected really well in the midfield. Already had another shot. It was kind of on a volley or half volley. That was going to be difficult for anybody to score on that.
Absolutely.
So I think the between the box play that he had during the game, I thought was high level and really, really good.
Agreed.
And I think that was a big thing. And then I know you want to talk about him a little bit. I want to talk about him a little bit. Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy coming off the bench.
First, circling back.
Okay, go ahead.
One thing that I love, and I didn't mention it when we were talking about Spicer, is we've got a lot of guys, especially in the midfield and on the wings and the wing back attacking fullback roles. They got some vicious shots on them. I'm talking about Davy Flores. I'm surprised he can get some real nice shots off from the middle of the park.
Got a nice little half
Quajo's had some rockets, and add Spicer to that mix, right? Maybe we shouldn't be worried about Oso mopping up those opportunities because that role can be passed to the committee of guys that will find themselves open and have some pretty vicious shots from distance. Let's get into JMR. My favorite thing about JMR this week, and I'm just going to roll it. I know I'm ruining a segment, but I'm just going to roll it because I effing love this. So here we go.
In football, anything happens. So when the ball came across, the guy kind of mishit it, and then something I've been working on with the assistant coaches, Alex and them, is just my heading. Because I had a chance last week with my head and I hit it over the bar. So as a young player, just going into training and trying to work on things that I can improve on. So heading was one of them, and then luckily I headed it into a good area and Prince with an amazing finish. It's funny because when we do finishing drills in training, Prince actually scores like that quite a few times.
Dude, like proper tears, like proper cutting onions. Like, can you ask for anything more? Like, we cover this team pretty aggressively, you know, and I shat on him last weekend for that laissez-faire kind of weak header where it looked completely nonplussed, and he was like, whatever, you win some, you lose some. And I went for the guts, man, and I was pretty upset. I think I said all sizzle, no steak in my WTR column. I can't ask for more than this. They trained on it. They attacked it over the week in between, and then look at what happens, right? That's pretty much perfect. 10 out of 10, no notes. So I was doing backflips over that, just backflips, and more, please. I love those little bits of insight into, how John Herdman and his staff are addressing it. And I think for a young player to do things in bite-sized chunks like that would be what I do if I was a soccer coach, right? Like, you kind of screwed up this, let's attack it, mimetic memory. And, next game, hopefully you get an opportunity. He does. The fates align. You know how confident he's going to be going for headers in the box now? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Angels are singing, right? Like, this is great.
You're seeing a player, like, I think we're finally seeing him really take a step forward. He's he's not close to the done article yet by any stretch of the imagination, but you're seeing a player really start to take the steps to be a real threat as a starter on this team. Now, I know he came off the bench this weekend, but you think about it, he gets into the play immediately. Just the tempo of the game picked up when he came in, right down that flank. Obviously, he draws a penalty. Sorry, go ahead.
He's been like the hipster pick, right? Like, he's been like the Matt Doyle, like, oh, have you seen JMR? He's amazing. And everyone else is like, well, he's not scoring goals, and he gets into weird fights, and he looks kind of lost out there. Like, he's kind of been the hipster, like indie cred pick for a while. But I think we're all starting to see what they were talking about, right? Like, begrudgingly 100%. So, like, oh yeah, like this kid actually is effing amazing, right? Like, I mean, we always saw the IQ, even when we were complaining about the feckless back passes. Mikey Singh explained it really well. Like, he sees the game at a high level, so he's like, well, that's a really low percentage thing, I'm not going to bother doing that. And I think it was you that said, well, sometimes you just have to, like, blunt force it, JMR. Sometimes you just got to trust that you're going to be better in the moment than the other guy, and just go for it. Like, even though it doesn't look like a high percentage chance, because soccer is played on the margins, right? If you were just going by Moneyball statistics, then don't bother, right? And I think he's realizing that. And then confidence means everything, and he's getting really confident, and you can see it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, again, to your point, you saw that on Saturday, right? Drives into the box, picks up a second ball, draws a penalty, right? Like, he's taking the opportunities now to go at players, like to take on opportunity. And look, we were kind of also complaining a little bit because we thought, well, Fede, like, he's running in the wings, he's doing the underlaps, he's doing really great overlaps, passing the ball. This was really maybe the first, maybe even the second game. You talk a little bit about Charlotte, where Federico was, like, trusting him in those moments to take the ball and do something with it. And
I almost wish he didn't. I thought that's my least favorite JMR play on the night. I think he took too many touches. He could have laid it off a lot sooner.
For the goal.
But I'm glad he got the penalty. I'm glad he did, man, because otherwise we'd be talking a lot different about that play. Credit to Fede for laying it off. It was the right move, but I can see why sometimes he'd be remiss to do that, because JMR really made a meal out of that when there were a million other options.
But again, like we said, he's not the
yeah.
finished article, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
the next sort of step I think is really his finishing, right? Like
Yeah.
in those moments, can he hit it first time, right? Can he shift it out of his feet a little bit quicker to get the shot off?
Absolutely.
Those are the things he still needs to work on, right? But those things are coming. You can see it now. You can really see those things are starting to round into shape. And of course, like he gets another assist. He's now got a goal and 2-3 assists this season.
Yeah, he's killing it.
So you're starting to see him become a real force, an impact player on the team. And now you're gonna what do you do with him when Richie gets healthy? Like what does he play? We have a question about that later on, so I won't spoil it. But it's going to be an interesting. That's a good problem from John Herdman to have, right? Is you get Richie back, and then what do you do?
It is, and I'm gonna remember that for later. But man, when we get to that question, I'm gonna explode. So
fair enough.
Anyway,
we asked a question last week about Sean Johnson and should he, should he still be getting the start? You and I agreed that he should continue to start. He's still your number one team of the week.
That's because we're amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's just logic. He's your number one. You got to give him the opportunity to get in there. New England represented as much of a banana peel match as we thought it was. It represented an opportunity to do that, and he got some good saves in there. He really did. With one of the huge assists from Nixon Gomez, who was lights out on the night. He was unbelievable. Massively impressed with him. He was ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure. And look, he had to. Sean Johnson had to make a couple of big saves. Look, you think about, okay, you turn the ball over in the attacking end. It comes back. I believe it was Sigurd Rosted that made a bad step forward. It might have been Nixon Gomez. I'm trying to remember.
I think it was.
And the ball gets played over the top,
yeah.
Ball gets played over the top, and it's kind of you're 1-0, and that's where you need your goalkeeper sometimes to steal you 3 points, right? And that this is a game where your number one steals you 3 points. Like I personally, I don't think New England played well enough to win the game. That's just my opinion. But the score was what it was. It was 1-0 at the time. You easily can go to 1-1. And you never know what happens at that point.
They had plenty of opportunities to equalize. I mean, I feel bad for I'm not going to even try because G Money will be on me. But the GV guy, whatever, he's Italian. G Money can.
Verona, yeah.
Yeah. Giacomo Verone, whatever. I'm never doing that again.
What's that?
Anyway, yeah, I felt bad for that guy having this peak that he's just not making it happen in New England, and you saw that on.
You're talking about the number nines, our number nines, like they have a DP number 9, and that guy is struggling.
He is.
So don't count your blessings sometimes, guys. I know we all want a DP number 9. Not all DP number 9s are cut from the same cloth, So keep that in mind. But yeah, look, I think from that perspective, Sean Johnson, great performance. Again, steals your team 3 points. I think also from a defensive perspective, and I was hearing it in the first half when obviously New England were attacking in the south end, you could hear Sean Johnson really being vocal with his defenders, being vocal with Nixon Gomez and Rosted, right? Like and Petretta too, just like in terms of when to step, when to push up. He was being very, very forward with his defenders, and that's what you want from a goalkeeper. Yeah. John Herdman said it. I don't think it's your clip this week for Herd's the Word, but he talked a little bit about Sean Johnson kind of being a bit of the leader in training in the week. Kind of just saying, they use that term above the line. It's something John Herdman uses a lot. He used it with the national teams. I mean, he's using it at TFC where you're talking about, here's the standard. So the line is the standard, and how do you go above that line? In a lot of ways, according to John Herdman, Sean Johnson was leading a lot of that conversation about what does that look like? How do we get better? How do we defend in better position? And this comes from, some of the bad goals in Charlotte, right? Especially, I think the third goal, stepping out from the corner and literally like no one
Yeah.
challenging the crosser, right? So, that's again something where you may have Sean Johnson have a few clangers here and there. I don't really think he
Hmm.
had any clangers, but like I get it, some maybe savable goals. But that leadership within the team, I think, is invaluable
It's
to
it's
this team.
it's so fascinating to me because, you know, those goals went in on his watch, right? So to
Hmm.
have the ability to sort of like separate that the very human emotion to sort of want to disappear into the woodwork, claim ownership of it, and then start telling people what to do. You know what I mean? That's that is something. It really is, like it's fascinating to me, that sort of interpersonal dynamic and how people own for their mistakes, but at the same time correct other people's, like it really is a fascinating, like psychosocial sort of thing.
But that's
And
that's the
mhm,
but that's the social capital he has in the room, right? Like when you've been a
exactly,
vet in the league for so
exactly.
long and you have respect across the league, you have that opportunity to do that. That's why I think
Mhm,
he's so important to this team. And that's why I don't think, unless you get something incredible for him, trade him, right? Like I just like I get that we want to sort of anoint Luka Gavrin as the next one, and maybe he is,
mhm,
right? But I don't think you're in a bad position if you have Sean Johnson and Luka Gavrin can learn from him and continue to get better as a goalkeeper and as a leader on the
mhm.
team. And then when his time comes, step into that number one role, right? I don't think you're in a bad position when you have two goalkeepers you trust to start games.
No, you're not. You're not. And the only thing that gives me pause in what you're saying is the fact that he's in a contract year, and you know the team would be, it would be a disservice to not see what kind of value you can get for him
For
before
sure.
there's no value, right? And that the asterisk there is, of course, he's amazing. Like that doesn't even enter into the calculus. He's amazing, and we'd love to have him, but there's realities above and beyond that to sort of preclude or supersede that, and yada 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 ad infinitum.
I
But
wouldn't be surprised if he resigns here. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to stay and resign, especially if the way things are going right now. And he's talked about this in press conferences.
mhm.
I think last year was it's a nightmare, right? It was just
Yeah.
like you walk into this team first year, you have all these expectations, and then literally,
Mhm.
as you like to say, the S hits the fan,
Yeah. Oh
literally.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
You may be right.
yeah, and then you turn around and you see how John Herdman's doing things
Mhm.
and how players are buying in, and your role in helping to shape that. Like he's probably,
Mhm. And he loves the
ar-
city.
yeah, I think
Mhm.
arguably he might be, from a team leadership perspective. I think he might be the most important player on the team. That includes Oso. Like in
Mhm.
terms of
Mhm.
that sort of galvanizing the team and getting people to listen. Like Oso does it in a different way, but I think from a guy speaking in the room and gaining respect from people, I think he's the guy.
I don't dispute that, and the thing that gives me the thing that makes me sort of veer onto your side is that he hasn't moved around the league very much, right? Like when he
No.
finds a place that's comfortable, he likes to stay and win championships. And I think that's what he wants to do here. And if the price is right, why move? You
Yeah.
know,
He'll
there's
get top
like
dollar. He'll be one of the highest paid goalkeepers in the league.
not
Easy.
not just that, but the teams that are above us that we want to be competitive with have their keepers sorted out.
Yeah,
They're not
100%.
actively looking, right? The only other teams that he'd be going to in MLS are teams that are sort of at our level or below our level. And I don't know if he wants another project when this one might be taking fruit, might be bearing fruit, right? So let's see. Sunny side, glass half full logic. I like
Absolutely.
it. I like it.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk a little bit about shift a little bit over to transfer MLS transfer deadline day is
Oh
tomorrow.
my
Surprise.
God, what a
Um,
what an info dump this morning. Jeez,
yeah,
John
we got
Molinaro gave me 100 heart attacks.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Our friend John Molinaro, obviously speaking to, or at least Jason Hernandez having a press conference, speaking a little bit ahead of the MLS transfer deadline. I'll be honest, we don't have any news. We don't know who's coming, who might be going. We don't have names or anything like that. But I think if you read into what the comments were today, you can start to get an understanding of where the team might be going. So if you don't mind, I'm going to just read a little bit from John Molinaro's tweets here.
Go nuts.
Just saying, GM Jason Hernandez today says club is looking to bring a player in and send a player out before transfer deadline tomorrow. Describe incoming target as being of a good age, good pedigree, and would be a core starter. Interesting comment there in terms of you're bringing in somebody to, it's not a guy you're going to play for TFC2. It's not a guy who you're projecting to be kind of maybe first, second, third guy off the bench. This guy would essentially be day in, day out starting 11 player. I got the feeling that it is not going to be a number 9.
Me too.
I think for right now, TFC is going to run with Prince Owusu and DeAndre Kerr as sort of your number 9s.
You have to.
Yeah.
You were there. You have to. You can't bench Prince Owusu now.
Yeah.
The soccer gods will murder you. You might as well just fold the club. Like, you can't. I'm sorry. He starts. I'm sorry. Like, so it's and G Money saying some really good quotes, and G Money actually went hog wild with his blue tick on a long scroller tweet with some good points there, and I believe that G Money also doesn't think it's going to be a number 9. I think it's a number 10.
I'm starting to lean that way as well. I think, or maybe not a traditional classic number 10, but it's going to be someone who could play in the middle and kind of be that lockpick kind of player. And I don't think it's a DP. I don't think it's a DP signing. And I'll explain why in a sec, but that's where I think they're going to go with this. That's kind of, if you can get that player now, then you go get that player. And especially if you don't need DP money to go get that player. Because I don't think it would make sense right now to bring in a DP. So
no,
it sounds like it's going to be, somebody that you maybe get at TAM level or just below that, but a player that's going to sort of help you creative wise in the midfield.
We got Victor Vasquez on TAM, but I think that was a unicorn deal, and he was a DP in every other aspect. He's also the greatest player to ever play for the team, but that's my opinion. I think it'll be an attacking midfielder. Not a pure 10. And when we say starter, I think it's in place for the Longstaff Quajo connection. I think it's been proven out that they're both not 90-minute players. And we need to plug that hole, and they can platoon as subs, but Pause ain't coming back, guys. He's not coming back.
It's a dream. People can dream.
Yeah, it's a dream. It's a dream. I think it's a 10, but people are saying it might be another wide outside back, and we have all of them, so I'm not sure why that's necessary. A center back we can always use more, but I think we're good for outside backs.
That was sort of my second guess is that it would be a center back. That as Mike Singh has said on the show before, that could a little bit better at carrying the ball than say sort of Shane O'Neill, for example, or give you a little bit more tactical flexibility in terms of how you play. So that maybe Raul Petretta sometimes can go back to left wing back, and you can plug in another center back. Again, that's good carrying the ball and can progress the ball passing. It will be interesting to see what they do with this, because and I'm sort of getting back to my point before about these roster rule changes that are potentially coming to Major League Soccer in the summer, right? So just to really recap very high level, long story short, basically this is meant to increase the amount of U22 initiative signings teams can make. Basically, it's a bail Inter Miami out rule. So essentially, you're still going to have 3 DPs, but the way you use those senior DPs will then determine how many U22 initiative spots you get. So long story short, if you have 2 senior DPs and you leave that third one unused, then you can get up to 4 U22 initiative players. If you
Mm-hmm.
have 3 senior DPs on your roster, you can get, I believe, 3 U22
Mm-hmm.
slots. Currently, TFC, I believe, are using 2 U22s, one on IO, one on Cassius, I believe.
I
I know IO for
think
sure.
so.
I'm not
Yeah,
100%
IO
on
for
Cassius, but
sure,
I
but
think it's
everything
Cassius.
else I'm not 100%.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
Cassius is on a young money deal, but I could be wrong. So if that's the case, it depends. Now TFC kind of have some flexibility on what they want to do now. Do you go
Mm-hmm.
and think about a third senior DP? Does that become your striker? What if Prince Wosu gets hot and becomes your number 9? Do you need to spend the
Mm-hmm.
money there? Maybe you don't use the additional DP spot, because technically, based on what Diaz Hernandez said, currently I believe Richie Larea is occupying that third DP
That
spot.
was
Kind of,
fantastic.
yeah.
That was just a wonderful bit of news there. Like, why? I mean, okay, I guess
Well,
you
it's
had
the
a
same.
reason,
It's
but you know
sort
how
of the same
often
thing they
I've
did.
defended Oso in WTR's comment section that could have been avoided if they had just been honest. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think like it's kind of like how Oso was a DP last year. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
technically uses the spot. They could buy him down off that number, and then you open up that DP spot. Or Richie is in a DP next year, right? Based on the rules.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah.
it depends on how you use that spot. So without getting all MLSy, timey wimey, ruly gruely with it,
Mm-hmm.
essentially TFC is going to have some decisions to make based on that. But it makes sense to wait until the summer before you really start doing all of that. So maybe if you can just pick up a piece right now that can help you in the midterm until you get to the summer window and really can
Mm-hmm.
start to build the roster, then I think that might make sense.
Yeah, this is a Benazet. This is a Lucas Janssen, Nicholas Benazet kind of signing. It will be a loan with purchase option. It might even be a Zlatan kind of deal, where you get him on TAM for year 1, and then you may be locked into a DP kind of situation for years 2 and 3. G Money posited this, and I think they're right, they're dead to rights on this. I absolutely think that's the way this deal is going to be structured. Hopefully we don't do them a dirty like we did Benazet, like benching them so they don't achieve a
Nico
performance
Benazet.
incentive and get locked into the deal. Hopefully we don't do them that dirty, or the Piatti special. I mean, this team does have a history of shafting on these weird structured loan with purchase option deals. But hey, if they can help us out and they get a free kit and get to see Toronto, maybe have some poutine, everybody wins. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's sort of the news on the inbound, and just to sort of quote what I was saying before. So John
Mm,
Molinaro just tweeting here that Hernandez said Jonathan Osorio restructured his contract, so he is no longer a DP. He wasn't bought down with Tamar Gam. He said Richie Larea has carried the DP tag since the start of the season, but
mm-hmm,
Larea won't require a DP tag next year, and the team will have a DP slot open in 2025. So right
mm-hmm,
now, it sounds like the team is carrying 3 DPs at the moment. So going into these new roster rules, they could probably add an extra U22 player. Again, it depends on
fantastic.
what Cassius Mailula's roster designation is. I'm not sure if he's
Mm-hmm.
on Young Money or not. So either way,
Anybody
it
in the
looks.
chat, let us know if you know for
Yeah,
sure.
if nobody
Mhm.
knows for sure, let me know. I'm pretty sure I read that he was, but if he isn't, let me know.
I think you're
But
just
that would be
conflating
interesting.
his nickname with Young Money. Like you're like
Yeah,
Cash Money, of
Cash
course, is
Money.
on a Young Money deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
good.
the
Mm-hmm.
interesting other part of this will be who goes out, right? And
Mm-hmm.
John Molinaro goes on to say that the player coming
They're
in
not
potentially and the
interconnected.
player
Yeah.
going out, they're not linked. So a
Mm-hmm.
player can go out later, and they can still sign who they want to sign. So clearly they have someone in mind that is heading out the door. The question just is when, and when do you pull that trigger, and can that happen by tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
or do you wait until the summer window or the European window opens, or do you use a buyout interesting times ahead in terms of sort
Yeah,
of how that
every
mechanism works.
it never ceases to make me smile when people are like, "Oh, someone's out." Well, it's got to be the flotsam. Like, of course, it's going to be the absolute dredges of the roster. Like, no, it isn't. Like, nobody wants them, so stop it. I don't think it's Akinola because Hernandez wouldn't be so glib about whether it happens or doesn't happen, considering Akinola's position as young money unlocks so many other things. So I don't think he would ever be so laissez-faire about a player that unlocks so many roster relief mechanisms and is in the roster going on 2 seasons now, almost directly as a consequence of what he does to the rest of our roster spend. So I just don't see it. Mabika, come on, guys, come on. I hope it's not JMR, but let's be honest. Like, we got to think about people that other teams are going to want, or there's no point in having this thought exercise. So, yeah, I'm glad, and I'm confused because we were all operating under the preset or the notion that there was no more money left in the purse, in TFC's purse. So hearing that there is, and that deals were renegotiated without using Tam Gam. Thank you, ma'am. It might be Coelho. G Money just said it. It might be Coelho, and I hate it, but it might be.
Yeah, you never know. It could be an interleague trade or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, I think as much as we've kind of said that Quajo's made some mistakes this year, you also see, kind of like we've talked about Prince of Wosu, a lot of good starting points in a player that could be really solid in MLS.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's somebody that's the kind of player an MLS team would be like, yeah, we'll
take him,
trade for that guy. Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no,
100%.
That completely makes sense.
TFC got rid of Schaffelberg, so I can't imagine Coelho is going to hold more sway over Jacob Schaffelberg. So might happen, may happen.
Absolutely.
I hate it, but it may happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Herds the word. You have your Herds the word this week. I'm intrigued. I haven't actually seen this. Usually I see it beforehand, but I don't know what you got.
I sure as hell have. Here we go.
Can I see that paper for a sec? Huh. That's odd. What are you talking about? Oh, have you not heard? Heard what? Heard the word. Heard the word. Don't you know about the herd? Surfing!
Anything can happen in football these days.
All right, and then I'll just move on to the actual herd.
Yeah, I mean, we needed 3 points, and how we got them, it wouldn't really matter tonight. This week was definitely a back to basics to try and push a clean sheet. And the most important thing was collectively they managed the game. And that was something we'd seen against Charlotte. We didn't manage the game well enough when we got ahead. And we knew at home we'd always have the crowd behind us, so that energy would always be there. And then, you've got to tip your hat to Jaquil Marshall-Rutty. I mean, he's had a big impact coming off the bench. And again, he's having a good season. He's making big chances for players, and Prince Owusu doing what he's been doing on a bit of a hot streak. So proud of the effort tonight. Proud of the way they managed the game, and just made sure that we were hard to beat.
All right, thoughts. My thoughts. John Herdman either wears a shirt that's way too small or whatever the hell was going on there. We need to find what size of clothes he actually wears. It's not medium, and it's certainly not whatever flotation device they had him in for that press conference. The other was, just the enthusiasm. It's nice to see the enthusiasm, no tells. And it's not a bad hoodie. It just you need to size down a couple, maybe 5 or 6 different sizes there.
It was cold night. Sometimes you just want to be comfy. You want to be comfy in your hoodie, man.
Yeah, it was a snuggie, that's for sure.
Yeah, like I think. Look, in terms of what he said, like it's clear it was just get the points. Don't care if it looks pretty. Didn't have to look pretty. Didn't always look pretty on Saturday, but they got the points. That's what mattered. And now you're back up to 5th in the conference, and now you're in kind of a decent spot, right? Where you're going to start going into 2 weeks. You're going to start going into 2 weeks a lot, especially in May. So if you can keep yourself in that sort of 5 to 7 position, you're looking good. And really, they're only 4 points off top. They're not far off. from that
Nope.
top perspective.
We're still in the hunt, which is great because we didn't expect it. You know,
No.
I might have been. I don't think the broadcast will pick it up because it has a problem when two people talk at the same time. Imagine that. But I do. You know, this is all gravy, right? We didn't expect to be here, so enjoy it.
Well,
This
Turks
is
did,
amazing.
so right now,
Yeah,
I'm
of course,
on,
Turks did. Yeah.
I am
Buy
on,
all the lottery
I'm on
tickets,
pace to own
Turks.
lunch.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
fourth, though.
We're not
They finished
worthy.
fifth.
We're not
No
worthy.
lunch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into a couple of questions here, just heading into TFC's.
So it's two questions because you never wrote question number 3.
Yeah, no, it's 2.
Oh, you're
It's
writing
2.
it right now? Okay.
It was 2 because I was like thinking about 3 of them. I'm like, the third one is like, it's a more after this is done anyway.
Do you like stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the first one just, and some people were talking about it in the chat earlier in the show, but just how strong of a lineup should TFC field Wednesday against Simcoe County Rovers in the Voyageurs Cup? The Voyageurs Cup does start this week. First game is tomorrow out west, but we kick off our campaign Wednesday at BMO Field against Barrie Simcoe Rovers, which before we get into the question, before we get into the answers, just congratulations to the Rovers. They won League One Ontario last year. A really great story. A lot of former national team players are invested in the club, and now they're getting their big day out. They're going to have they're apparently supposed to have 2,000 away travel.
I know.
To the game on Wednesday.
It's going to be great. I hope the banter's good. You know, I hope they
they're
come
stuck way up in they're stuck way up in the 200s in the corner.
I mean, they still have to get into the stadium, right?
That's
I
true.
hope the banter's all right, and you know, I hope they bring the noise.
Well, here's the thing,
and we get to see it. Yeah,
the last couple of seasons, the attendance at the Cup has not been great. Now, this is because usually by that point TFC are well out of it, and everybody's kind of tuning out. But I think people are gonna have to show up on Wednesday. If you're a TFC fan, I think this is not one you want to necessarily skip. Because I think this is one where you don't want to necessarily get shown up in your own barn. You know what I mean? There's a good possibility that if people don't show up because they're like, it's Simcoe Rovers, whatever. It's the League One Ontario, it's the Cup, whatever. World Cup. Call me when we're playing Montreal in the semifinals. First of all, not a guarantee you get into the semifinals. Two, exactly. This is going to be, they're going to treat this like a Cup final, so you better bring it on Saturday.
Oh yeah, 100%. And G Money, he says, I believe they were given the north end, the VIP movie theater seats.
They may have moved them over to the north. I've heard something like that, but I'm not 100% sure.
You know what? I'm not mad at it. I'm actually not mad at it
either. They may close.
That's right.
Because the Cup games, they tend to close the upper decks because people.
Yeah. Give them the posh seats. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Show them a good time.
Well, it's not going to be the posh seats. It's going to be those bleachers just behind them.
Oh no! Do not give them.
Yeah,
those.
It's going to be the bleachers. It's going to be if it's that.
Give them the movie theater experience. Give them.
They're going to get the bleachers.
Seats.
They're 100%.
Oh man, come on. Yeah. That's not nice. That's like making them sit outside.
They're still the away team. Okay, listen. I get it. Great story, and I'm applauding. Don't get me wrong. You're the away team. Go sit on the bleachers and shut up. That's your problem.
Give them. All right, whatevs.
All right, so back to the question, which was how strong of a lineup should TFC be fielding on Wednesday? Jeff, what are you thinking?
Do we even have a B team at this point? I don't know if we can even ask this question in good faith.
We've got a lot of Canadian. There's a lot of you got to start at least 3 Canadians, which you're going to do with your eyes closed. So that's not a problem. It's just
that's not an issue.
Yeah, the question just becomes: are you going to really make it Canadian? Right? Are you going to go? You're most likely going to start Gavran in goal.
Yeah, I can see that.
JMR starts. Maybe maybe you play Kobe on the opposite wing, or maybe Kosi gets a start. DeAndre probably starts at top. So you fill your quota there, and then the question is, what about the rest of the team? How do you fill out that?
I mean, I think Prince starts. Sorry, DeAndre, but he's got the hot foot right now, and I think he starts. Or at least see some minutes. Or you don't. I mean, it's a midweek game, and then you could get him injured, and that all goes to crap. So I don't know. I'm of two minds on the subject. I don't want to kill the vibes, but I also don't want to risk injury. So I don't know. I think if we rotate too much, it may be a bad idea, but I think for the starting lineup, super rotation. Yeah, let's call it super rotation. Everybody that needs minutes. And if Cash Money doesn't get minutes, you sell him this weekend. I'm telling you, if he doesn't get
That'll be
come on,
interesting.
man.
Because like in the past
Yeah.
in the cup, like when we got to Halifax and stuff, like I thought they'd heavily rotate the team, and then Berdesky is starting, right? And
They don't.
is starting.
Yeah.
So
That's what gives me pause as well. Like I have a feeling, that it's going to be a pretty strong lineup to start.
I think so. I actually think so too. I actually think they're going to play a pretty. I got a feeling Berdesky will play. I don't know if he'll start, but I got a feeling he'll play.
He wants a goal, man. Who better than
exactly
to,
right?
Than
Put him in
feast
an opportunity where he might be able to get a goal. Yeah, see the ball go in the back of the net.
Same with Prince. Let him get some golazos on these guys. But I'm telling you, if Cash Money doesn't start, man,
that'll be interesting. I don't know if he'll start. I really don't know if he'll start. I think he'll come off the bench, but I don't know if he'll start. Like I project, or I'm thinking like it's Gavrin in. You probably have Mabika, Rosted, and probably you probably keep the same back as you did on Saturday for the most part. JMR probably starts on the wing, though. I mean, if he's and this goes into, actually won't spoil it because it's going into the second question, but JMR probably starts, maybe, and it's Spicer again. Your midfield probably is Osorio. Maybe you play Kosi.
I mean, that's rotating 2 or 3 guys, right? Like that.
Right.
That brings
you're
us
not
back
going.
to,
You're
like,
not going full
where's our
11,
B
but you're
team?
rotating 3 or 4 guys out, right? Like that's kind of what
I think
I'm
that's
thinking.
the most we can hope for. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think you necessarily want to go full. It's not like FIFA where you rotate your entire team for a cup game and then just hope for the best, right? Like I do think you're going to actually get a pretty strong thing, because I do think like one, they don't want to get embarrassed at home, right? Like look, I get everybody's kind of thinking they're going to roll over Simcoe, and you're probably right, but hey man, these guys are going to come up fired up. All right, they haven't played a game this year. They played friendlies, but they just I think they maybe just had their league one.
We're going to clean their clocks. We're going to clean their clocks. I mean, they're not match fit, but they are going to come out screaming.
Right? They're going to they're going to come out screaming. But and the question is just can you handle it, right? Like so you don't want to necessarily get embarrassed. And you want to progress in the cup. And I really do think this is actually a year where Toronto FC really do need to prioritize the Canadian Championship.
I agree.
Try to win it.
I 100% agree.
Just from a money perspective, just from a, you need a trophy in the cabinet. That would be something big for John Herdman. I'm sure
Leagues
in his
up, baby.
And the goals he's written on the walls at the training camp, I guarantee you that's one of them, is to win the Voyageurs Cup. So from that perspective, I know a lot of people are thinking heavy rotation. I think there will be rotation. I just don't think it's going to be heavy rotation.
No. We don't have the bodies.
No, at least we have the bodies, but we just don't have bodies that are like match tempo kind of ready, right?
Yeah.
So just to throw them in, even against Simcoe, which again, I understand levels and all that. I just don't think you want to risk it from that perspective. Okay, 100%. Question 2. Should Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy be a game in, game out starter for Toronto FC? Came off the bench this weekend, has started the majority of the game, so I don't want to necessarily downplay that. But, should he be a guy that is one of your automatic penciled in as, a player in your 11?
No.
Interesting.
Absolutely not.
Okay, why?
I can't, because not yet, and maybe not this season. Bite-sized chunks. He's doing well as an impact sub. So let's avoid the temptation to give him all the responsibility, right? I think we're learning that he responds best. And again, I am making some crazy suppositions here, but just based on the press conference that made me cry, taking that to heart, bite-sized chunks for the kid, right? Headers, let's practice. 20 minutes of solid action, let's go. And then I think that's the best way to develop him, quite honestly, into the diamond sharp player that we're now starting to see out there. I absolutely think you do not upset the apple cart here. We have people that can start over him. Bringing him in fresh to terrorize tired defenders. What a great trick to have in your arsenal. So yeah, no, my answer is
okay.
No.
Fair. I think yes. Though G Money and a few other people have brought it up that until Richie's back, right? Until
Yeah.
Richie's back, I think he is your starter. I think you pencil him in the 11 every time you have an opportunity. Once Richie's back, and I'll say Richie specifically. I know some people said, well, maybe if Lorenzo gets back earlier, I would still play Jaquil even when Lorenzo's back. It's more when Richie comes back. That's when I think, you start maybe using him as a super, like you said, like a impact.
Well, not
sub
for
off the
Richie,
bench.
because if Richie can play the full 90 plus, he plays it, right? Like Richie doesn't necessarily.
Well, even
get
if he
subbed out
can't,
of
right?
games,
Like
yeah.
say he can go 60 or 65 when he first gets off the bench. Like Jaquil Marshall-Rutty is a pretty good option to come off the bench and
to come
start
in
rest
for
of
the
those minutes.
to mop up. Yeah. I agree. I agree with you.
But I will say that he's getting closer, in my opinion, to being a guy that you kind of find a spot for him in the lineup. I think he has improved that much. I'm not saying that he is Europe bound. I'm not saying he's the most important player on the team by any stretch.
No, I feel you. I hear you.
I just think that he's a guy that he can bring a lot of impact to your team. You were right that I think he's still learning on the job, very much so.
And I love it. I love to see it. I love to see it. It's
and
so
I think
amazing.
I think he's now at the point where you got to play those games to grow, right? So if he's
That's fair, Mike. That's fair. But
right.
I
So
don't
if
think we're
he
there
can
yet.
get those minutes, I think you're really starting to see something. But that's just sort of where I'm at.
Yeah.
And
I feel you.
it'd be great. I think it's going to be great if he starts on Wednesday. Like, I think it'll actually be good for him to start on Wednesday.
I think he starts on Wednesday. One, he's Canadian, so it checks off that box. And two, I think he's earned the start against Simcoe County. And we'll see what happens. We'll see how he cooks. I'm certainly going to be watching to see if he can maintain the pace that he brought for his minutes as a sub off the bench last weekend for a full 90 against competition at that level, right? And I don't like to take too much out of small sample sizes, but I'm certainly going to be watching for that because, this season especially has really, really made me notice when players fade in and out of games. And I'm talking about my guy Quajo. I'm talking about Matty Longstaff. I'm talking about Davey Flores. I'm talking about our DPs, right? Like, watching Berna do what he does, right? Like it's Marky Delgado. Like it's an impossible engine. Like it's ridiculous. Like how is he running that much all the time, right? And unlike Marky, where it was like you had to really watch Marco to go, oh my god, like he's just covering, he's touched every blade of grass, right? Berna makes you feel it, like you're right there with him, feeling those long yards. So yeah, I've been very aware of players' engines in a way that I don't think I ever have noticed following this team before. So I'm definitely going to be watching JMR to see what kind of if he can maintain that pace.
Absolutely. Last question here before we wrap up this show. Just actually saying, will Flores be rested? I think he will be. I think that's where Kosi maybe comes in.
I agree.
And plays, but
unless we need him. He's on the bench.
He's on the bench because they are a very different team when Davey Flores is not in the lineup. They are a very, 100% very different team. They don't bite as much without Davey. And they're very, very different if he's not playing. But again, it'll be interesting to see, how they adapt to Simcoe County Rovers. Like it's League One. It's not a chump league, but it's also it's several steps down, right? And they just sometimes you play down to your opponents, and I wonder how TFC are going to handle that, and that will be very, very interesting to see. All right, let's wrap it up. Thank you everybody for tuning in to another Toronto Till I Die. We appreciate it. The numbers are popping. You guys are going off in the chats. We love it. Thank you so much again for interacting during the show. Do us a favor, guys. If you have the gram, follow us on Instagram. We're starting to post some things. Like I'm obviously, when I'm at games, I'm posting stuff that's happening in the South End. Like I'm posting like the post-game celebrations and stuff like that, which is always fun. Just find us at TTID Show or search.
I'm good for like 100 incendiary hot take tweets per game, right? Like we know this. So
exactly.
So I don't have to remind anybody.
Most of you already follow us on the Bird app, so you're all good.
We got 2 new iTunes reviews that I deleted from my desktop like an idiot before we started today, but they were all positive. I don't ever want to giggle again because it's becoming a meme now. And I just did it.
Yeah, I mean, and so there's that. For those that listen on podcast version, Find us wherever you get your podcast. Just search Toronto Till I Die. If you can, leave us a review or a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcast. We really appreciate that. And of course, if you're on YouTube right now, subscribe so you don't miss the notification on our shows. Hit that bell icon as well. So for Jeffrey P. Nesker, I'm Mike Newell. We'll see you next week, everybody. Cheers.
Salut.
And wait, and baby, I'm TFC till I die.